Almost over. Our theme for this month has been inclusion in action. And today I want to talk about us as a community and call us into action as a collective group. I want to talk about what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. And today I want to ask us to mindfully and with intention agree to be a beloved community. So we spent this month exploring this concept. Way back at the beginning of the month, we talked about how splendidly complex each one of us is. And that how it takes an active part, an action on our part, to recognize and appreciate our own complexity, loving ourselves in that way, to launch an inner strength so that we can look at the complexity of other people and love and appreciate their complexity too. And then a couple weeks ago, we affirmed our call to action that week was to not be colorblind as we consider everyone as individual expressions of the divine that deserve to be seen as they actually are. And they deserve our appreciation and our celebration, not just our acceptance. And last Sunday, Susan talked about the spiritual principle about how powerful choice is, right? And that our call to action was to choose wisely our thoughts. So to take this further today, I want to see if we can unite as a community around these concepts and make a collective choice together. But first, let's talk about what I mean by beloved community. King believed that change should be brought about, as we all know. He believed that change should be brought about by nonviolence and peace. And if these methods were used, his vision was the end result would be a community where the oppressors and those oppressed would be united. And in 1957, this is what he said: the aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community, so that when the battle is over, a new relationship comes into being between the oppressed and the oppressor. In the science of mind, we teach that change will only be brought about by the use of principles to change our thinking and thereby change our experiences of life. That's what we teach. It's basic seminal truth that we teach. We teach the creative process, which starts with the question, where do you want to end up? Where do you want to end up? What is the point on the horizon to which you aim? And then we begin to align our choices and our thoughts towards that aim with the end that we have in our mind. Martin Luther King had the end in mind in his civil rights leadership. And the end was the beloved community. He said, but the end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opposers into friends. It is the type of understanding goodwill that will transform the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this love which will bring about miracles in the hearts of men. I wish I could preach like Martin Luther King Jr. The end is the creation of the beloved community. The end that he kept in mind always was love. So I looked at a more recent definition of beloved community. I'll paraphrase it from a recent speech transcript. Beloved community, where all are welcome no matter what we look like, where we are from, or who we love. A community where we may not agree on every detail, but we are united by the fundamental belief that every human being is of infinite worth, deserving our compassion, dignity, and respect. A community where we look out for one another, where we rise and fall as one, where we face our challenges and celebrate our triumphs together. So let's consider something like that N that MLK stood for. So as I work with you to use these spiritual principles and creative process to build and nurture a strong and thriving spiritual community here in Tampa, I want us to keep that in mind too. I'm just fine if we consider the end the same one that King held in his consciousness, a beloved community, where everyone is learning more and more about how to take a stand for love and inclusivity, where we are all welcomed and embraced into this community, where those who are farther along in the spiritual growth process are encouraging those who are just starting to look at life from a spiritual perspective, where we all grow when we're together, learn and evolve, and we heal as a group. Let's allow those with the highest vision of love lead us forward to that end. And as we do in the Science of Mind, let us align ourselves every week as a group to head toward that highest possible end as a community. Let's choose to come together here with hearts of love and forgiveness. We're not going to be perfect. None of us are going to be perfect. But if we have our minds that are filled with grace and ease and openness, we can come together fearlessly and stand beside each other and witness each other's healing and growth. Let's invite our friends and loved ones to come here, knowing that there is spiritual truth here, there is love here, and everyone has a place at our table. What I know is that we are stronger together. Have you ever noticed or ever looked closely at a very big metal cable? You know, last year when I was on a ship, I was noticing the big, heavy metal cable that tied this ginormous ship to the dock. And each one of those cables is made up of smaller individual fibers and cables that are twisted together to make a larger strand. And then those larger strands are twisted together to make an even larger strand, and so on until you get a really large cable that's strong and functional as one piece of material. And the cable was capable of holding this big ship into place no matter how rough the seas were. That cable was strong, and each strand alone is not very strong, but together it was unbreakable. And we know the truth, as above, so below. So in something big, we can find the same truth in something small. So what is true is that you are an individual cable made up of many facets of your being. And the more you can embrace and accept all those little fibers of yourself, your personality and your experience, the stronger you will grow as an individual. Because if you look at just one aspect of yourself and think that that's all you've got, then you might see yourself as weak and ineffective in a whole lot of situations. But if you consider yourself in your wholeness, all of you, you are strong and unbreakable. You have everything you need. And the more you love yourself and your place in the whole of life, the more resilience you have. And if you bring to the table your fully expressed self, your loving self, your highest self, then you are bringing your strength to this community. We've got to love ourselves. Russell Anthony Gibbs wrote a book called The Principle of Oneness, and this is what he said in it. Choose to love every facet of yourself unconditionally. You are a complex, multidimensional being, and loving yourself requires identifying, accepting, and loving all your seemingly separate parts. So if you can love your seemingly separate parts, we are individually stronger. And if every single member of this community works to strengthen their own strand, we will collectively grow stronger together too. And if each one of us continues to grow and learn and heal and evolve, it benefits the whole. It benefits all of us. Because what I know is that as each person heals and grows, each one becomes more loving and more accepting of those different than us. This is going to allow us a greater experience of diversity. Here's the truth. I want our community to represent the world around us in every way. I want to gather to us more and more strands of individual wires that are colorful and diverse and varied in every way. I want us to hold a consciousness of diversity and inclusion that magnetizes to us an ever-widening circle of human expression. And as we embrace each other, as we twist together to create a greater strand, a more unified cable, so to speak, we'll become stronger. We'll become stronger as individuals, yes. And the more loving we are as individuals, the more evolved and healed we are as individuals, the stronger and loving, evolved and healed we can be as a community, as a beloved community. Because when we seek to understand ourselves and then we seek to understand each other, we become more united. And the more diverse our embrace can be, the stronger our community can be, and the bigger impact we can have here in Tampa as we take our light out into more neighborhoods and more communities around the city. So many of you probably know my history in spiritual communities, but if you're new, you might not, so let me just tell you this. I found this philosophy in Seattle in 2001 in a very, very large and diverse center. It was a large center filled with just a very diverse group of people. And then I lived in Dallas, Texas, and I attended a large Unity church there. There was a tiny Science of Mind church, but not very big, so I went to the Unity church. And the church in Dallas was nowhere near as diverse as the place that I had been in Seattle. It pretty much was the same size almost, but it really attracted just one demographic for the most part. So then I moved to Atlanta, and I was at the Center for Spiritual Living, the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta is the name of it, and that community gave me a more similar experience to the one that I had in Seattle. The Atlanta Center was remarkably diverse in every way. You know, on a Sunday when you're sitting there, my neighbor, I might be sitting next to a wealthy business person, or I might be sitting next to a community member that was having the experience of not having a home. I could be sitting next to a transgender man or a cisgender woman. My neighbor might be 86 years old, or might be 26 years old. They were black, brown, white. It was an amazingly diverse community. The person might be wearing a hijab to honor their Islamic faith, or they might be wearing a yarmulke to let us know that they were celebrating their Jewish faith. It was just diverse in every way. And we were woven together in a thick, strong strand of community as we learned in the Sunday services together, or we sat in class together, or we celebrated our life triumphs, or we mourned our losses together. We prayed together and we played together. We laughed as one and we wept as one. And I bring this consciousness of diversity to this community here in Tampa. I mean it when I say that everyone is welcome here. I want you to feel confident to invite your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, and know that they will be embraced not only by me, but by your fellow community members, regardless of their backgrounds. We are stronger together in beloved community. And I want us to proclaim ourselves a community of faith that affirms a mosaic of identity. I want us to proclaim ourselves a community of faith that is healing ourselves of anything that blocks our love from flowing from our voices and our hearts and our actions. I want us to proclaim ourselves a community of faith that is growing internally and externally. And I want us to proclaim ourselves a community of faith that builds bridges. We are teaching a philosophy here that reminds us that what we claim for ourselves and for this community and for the world has great impact and great import. We are bringing form into being as we co-create, and that is a tremendous gift, and that is a tremendous responsibility. We can build inclusive community, but it takes each of us as individuals to do this collective work. We have to do it as individuals. But let's do it with conviction. Let's vow to create inner change and collective change in this very room. So I want Vicki to sing a song. I'm going to ask her to come back to the piano. I want her to sing the song in this very room. And here I've created an altar in front of us. And I'm going to light this gold candle as a symbol of love and acceptance. And you can see that there are lots of candles up here on the altar too. There's one for each of you. So if you are willing to proclaim yourself as a part of this group, vowing to create a beloved community, vowing to heal any barriers within yourself, to loving every human being on the planet, vowing to embrace anyone and everyone who walks through our doors here at the Center for Spiritual Living Tampa Bay, vowing to make a place beside you, or 6 feet away from you maybe, but a place beside you at the table for any spiritual seekers who come our way, vowing to bless all who enter here. If you're willing to proclaim this privately within yourself, I invite you to come up and light an individual candle and place it back on the table. So of course we're going to do it one at a time. We're going to take our time, be distanced. But I want you to take your time and consider this a sacred ritual of a commitment to love, a commitment to the beloved community. So I'll ask Vicki to sing the first verse of the song as you kind of take this into your own consciousness and your own prayer. And I'll invite the practitioners that are in the room to come and light their candle first, and then come join us in creating a beloved community.
In this room, there's quite enough love for one like me.
So I will close with a quote from Barbara Brown Taylor as we sit in our agreement to bless others as they come to our beloved community. Barbara Brown Taylor says that we are able to bless one another at all is evidence that we have been blessed, whether we can remember when or not. That we are willing to bless one another is miracle enough to stagger the very stars.